The galactic palace of Arendor floated like a glowing crystal above the burning clouds of a dying star. Its walls were made of silver glass that shimmered with the light of 1,000 suns, and its towers reached far into the black sky like blades of light. Every corridor was filled with alien beauty, every floor polished until it reflected the faces of those who walked on it. The palace was the heart of the Zalari Empire, a civilization older than most stars. The Zalari were tall, elegant, and almost perfect in their control. They ruled their worlds with order and precision, where emotion was seen as weakness and compassion as a flaw. Among the guests who came that week was a human, Commander Elias Ward of Earth. He was the youngest diplomat ever sent to meet the Zalari Queen, and his mission was clear: to build peace. Humanity had recently joined the Galactic Council after decades of struggle, and the Zalari were among the most powerful members. But peace with them was not easy. They saw humans as noisy, emotional creatures, strong but undisciplined, clever but unpredictable. Elias walked through the glowing halls of the palace with a straight posture and a calm face, though his heart raced inside his chest. He could feel hundreds of eyes watching him as he passed by. Alien guards stood like statues beside the walls, wearing silver armor that reflected every movement. He could hear the soft hum of energy crystals running beneath the floor. He had come a long way from Earth. He had trained for years, studied dozens of alien cultures, and learned to speak the Zalari tongue, a language made of calm tones and pauses. He was ready for any kind of test, or at least, that's what he told himself. That evening, the Queen hosted a grand gathering in the Hall of Stars. The air shimmered with holographic constellations, and the guests, beings from hundreds of worlds, floated or walked gracefully under the glowing ceiling. The Queen herself sat upon a throne of white energy. Her name was Velistra, and she was known across galaxies for her wisdom and her strict command. Her skin shone like pearl, and her eyes held no warmth, only the cold light of reason. Elias bowed deeply when he approached her. She spoke in a soft, distant voice, welcoming the human envoy to her domain. Her tone was polite, but her words felt like measured tests. She asked questions about Earth's growing fleets, its goals, and its ambitions. Elias answered carefully, his voice calm and respectful. The conversation lasted long into the night. When it was finally over, he was allowed to walk freely through the palace to observe the perfection of order, as the Queen called it. Elias used that chance to explore. He passed through glowing bridges and spiral corridors where alien servants moved quietly, cleaning or serving food. They never looked up. Their steps made no sound. It was all too perfect, almost lifeless. He turned into a narrow passage lined with long silver curtains away from the main halls. There was no one else there. The noise of the party faded, replaced by the distant hum of engines that kept the palace in orbit. As he walked, a faint sound reached his ears. It was soft and broken, the sound of weeping. He stopped. For a moment he thought it was a mechanical noise, maybe a broken pipe or wind moving through the vents. But then he heard it again, quiet sobs filled with emotion. It was strange. He had never heard any Zalari cry. They were said to have removed emotions from their genetics long ago. Curious and concerned, Elias followed the sound. It led him behind one of the silver curtains into a small service chamber filled with cleaning drones and storage units. There, kneeling on the cold floor beside a small glowing sphere, was a young Zalari woman. Her uniform marked her as a maid, one of the palace attendants. Her skin was pale silver blue, her hair like threads of white light. But what struck Elias the most were her eyes. They were bright blue and full of tears. The tears shimmered as they fell, forming tiny crystals that melted when they touched the floor. She looked up suddenly when she realized someone was there. Her face froze with fear. For a moment she didn't breathe. Then she quickly wiped her tears away with her sleeve and bowed low. I did not mean to be seen," she said in a trembling voice. Elias stepped forward slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "It's all right," he said gently. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just heard someone crying." Her eyes widened even more. She shook her head quickly. "You must not speak of this," she whispered. "Please, you must not tell anyone you saw me." Elias frowned. "Why, what's wrong?" She looked away, her hands trembling. "Because mercy is forbidden here," she whispered softly, almost too quietly to hear. Then she stood up and ran out through another door before he could stop her. Elias stood there for a long moment staring at the empty room. The phrase echoed in his mind. Mercy is forbidden here. It didn't make sense. He knew the Zalari were strict, but to forbid mercy, to forbid feeling. He picked up the small white cloth she had dropped. It was a piece of fine fabric with strange glowing threads woven through it, probably a cleaning cloth. He folded it and kept it in his pocket, unsure why. That night back in his guest quarters, Elias couldn't sleep. The palace lights dimmed and the stars outside the window glowed faintly. But his mind kept returning to that moment, the fear in her eyes, the trembling in her voice, and those crystal tears. He turned on his small datapad and searched the palace archives for information about the servants. There was nothing. The records were clean, almost too clean, as if no one wanted to admit the servants even existed. He tried to look up information about emotions among the Zalari. The database stated that centuries ago, the Zalari had decided that emotions caused chaos. They had removed them through genetic engineering, leaving only calm logic and reason. That was why they never smiled, never laughed, never cried. So who was that Maid? He replayed her words in his mind again and again. Mercy is forbidden. The next morning he attended another meeting with the Queen. She looked as calm as ever, sitting upon her glowing throne. Lyria, though he did not know her name yet, stood beside her silently, carrying a tray with shining goblets. It was her, the maid from last night. She kept her eyes down, never looking at him, but he could tell from the way her hands trembled slightly that she knew he had recognized her. Elias felt a strange pull in his chest. She looked like someone trapped inside invisible chains, someone who wanted to speak but dared not. When the Queen rose to leave, the maid followed her closely. Before exiting, she glanced at Elias for the briefest second. Her expression was a mix of warning and sadness. After the meeting, Elias spoke privately with another alien diplomat, a thin, scaled being from a neighboring world. When Elias mentioned the servants, the diplomat grew pale and nervous. "Do not ask about them," he said quickly. "The servants are not like others. They are property of the Queen, created for service. To show emotion is forbidden. You must not speak of it." Elias pressed for more, but the alien refused. "Humans still value feelings," the diplomat said softly. "But here they see it as infection. Do not make yourself a target." That night Elias couldn't rest again. The palace, so grand and beautiful, suddenly felt like a cold cage. He looked at the stars outside and thought of Earth. Messy, emotional, full of flaws, but alive. He remembered his mother's voice, the laughter of his friends, the warmth of rain. All those small human things that made life feel real. And he realized how empty perfection could be if it had no heart inside it. When he finally fell asleep, he dreamed of the maid standing alone in a hall of glass, her tears shining like stars that no one else could see. The next day he tried to find her again. He visited the servant quarters but was stopped by guards. "Restricted area," they said coldly. Their eyes glowed faintly under their helmets. He could do nothing but walk away. Still, as he turned a corner, he thought he saw her for a moment, a flash of silver hair disappearing into a side passage. He wanted to follow, but the sound of the Queen's voice echoed from behind. "Commander Ward," she said. "You wander much." Her tone was calm, but her eyes were sharp, almost searching. He bowed respectfully and gave the best excuse he could think of. "Just learning the structure of your great palace, Your Majesty." "Curiosity is a human trait," she said. "It builds much, and destroys more." Elias smiled politely, but her words felt like a warning. When she walked away, he exhaled slowly. He had learned something that wasn't meant to be known. There was a secret inside the palace, one that even the Queen guarded. And the crying maid, whoever she was at the center of it. He promised himself that he would find out why. Because if someone could cry in a world that had forgotten emotion, then maybe there was still hope hidden within even the coldest heart, and he intended to find it. The next few days in the Galactic Palace passed quietly, but Commander Elias Ward felt that silence was hiding something. Every corridor looked perfect, every servant moved like part of a grand machine, and every conversation followed the same polite tone. The palace looked alive, yet he could feel that something deep inside it was not right. He had not seen the maid again since that first night, but her words still echoed in his mind. "Mercy is forbidden here." Those words had scratched something inside him that he could not ignore. Humans had always believed in compassion, even in the middle of war. But here, in this palace of cold beauty, mercy seemed like a crime. Elias attended more meetings with the Queen and her council. They discussed peace agreements, trade routes, and rules for space travel between their systems. The Queen spoke calmly, never raising her voice, never showing any emotion. To most people, she looked like perfection, strong, graceful, and wise. But to Elias, she looked lonely. Each time he entered the hall, his eyes searched for the Maid. Sometimes she was there, standing behind the Queen, carrying a tray or holding a shining crystal tablet. She never looked directly at him, but he noticed that her hands always trembled when she was near. He wanted to speak to her again, to ask why she had cried, but the guards were always watching. One night after the meeting ended, Elias left the hall and took a longer route back to his quarters. He passed through one of the older parts of the palace, where the lights were dimmer and the walls showed tiny cracks from age. He could hear faint whispers ahead. Moving quietly, he stopped near a corner and listened. 2 guards were speaking. "Her emotions are growing stronger," one said. "The Queen knows," replied the other, "but she refuses to remove the defect. If the council finds out, they will demand punishment." Emotion cannot exist within the royal bloodline. Elias's heart raced. He understood only part of it, but it was enough. They were talking about the Maid. A defect? What did they mean? Why would emotion be called a defect? He waited until the guards walked away, then slipped into the hallway they had come from. It led him to a door marked with glowing Zalari symbols. His translator identified them as private quarters, royal staff. He knew he shouldn't go in, but curiosity pushed him forward. He placed his hand on the sensor. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was quiet and small, filled with faint blue light from a window that showed the burning star outside. There was a bed made of crystal threads and a small table. On the table sat something strange, a single white cloth folded carefully. It was his handkerchief. The one he had given her that night. He picked it up slowly. It was clean and neatly folded. He realized she had kept it. That small human gesture must have meant something to her. "Why are you here?" a soft voice said behind him. Elias turned quickly. The Maid stood at the doorway holding a tray of glass spheres. Her eyes were wide with fear again, but she didn't run this time. "I had to find you," Elias said quietly. "I needed to know why you cried." Her hands trembled. "You shouldn't be here. If the guards find you, they'll think—" "I don't care what they think," he interrupted. "I just want the truth." She looked at him for a long time, her blue eyes searching his face. Then she sighed and placed the tray on the table. "You really are human," she whispered. "You ask questions even when it's dangerous." Elias smiled slightly. "It's something we're known for." The Maid looked down, her voice soft. "My name is Lyraya. I serve the Queen, but I am not like the others. I was created here inside this palace." "Created?" Elias repeated. She nodded slowly. "The Queen's scientists made me. I am a copy. My body is Zalari, but my mind was built to feel emotions. It was part of an experiment. They wanted to study empathy, something the Zalari lost a long time ago." Elias was stunned. "You mean you were made to feel?" "Yes," she said. "But when they saw what emotions truly were, sadness, love, fear, they called them weaknesses. The project was supposed to be destroyed, but the Queen stopped them. She said I would serve as her maid and no one would speak of my creation again." Elias tried to understand. "Then you're—" He paused, not sure how to say it. She finished his thought. "I am a living secret. If the council finds out that I exist, they will destroy me and punish the Queen." Elias felt a wave of anger and disbelief. "That's not right. You're not a defect. You're alive." Lyraya smiled faintly, but her eyes were sad. "To you, maybe. But here I am a mistake that should not breathe." Elias stepped closer. "Then why does the Queen protect you?" Lyraya hesitated. "Because I am part of her. The scientist used her own genetic code to create me. In a way, I am her mirror. Everything she could have been if she still felt." Elias stood silent for a moment, trying to take in the meaning of her words. "You're her clone?" "Yes," Lyraya said softly. "Her daughter, her shadow, her curse. I do not know which." The room went quiet. Outside, the dying star sent waves of orange light through the window. Elias could see the reflection of both their faces on one human, one alien, standing side by side. He finally spoke. You said mercy is forbidden. Why? Because mercy is born from emotion, she said. The Zalari believe feelings lead to chaos. Long ago, when they still had emotions, they fought among themselves. They erased those parts from their genes and replaced them with pure reason. It brought peace, but it also killed joy. Her words hit Elias deeply. He thought of his own people, humans who fought and loved, who made mistakes but also forgave. He realized then how precious feelings truly were. Does the Queen ever show emotion? He asked. Lyraya's eyes softened. Sometimes when no one is watching. When I was young, she would look at me and seem almost sad, but she never speaks of it. I think she keeps me alive because she sees something in me that she lost. Before Elias could answer, an alarm sounded. Red light flashed across the room. Lyraya gasped. They've detected unauthorized access, she whispered. You need to leave now. Elias turned to the door, but it slid open before he reached it. 2 guards entered, weapons raised. Human! Step away from the subject, one of them shouted. Lyraya stepped in front of Elias, spreading her arms. He did nothing. Please let him go. Silence, the guard barked. You are property of the throne. You do not speak. Elias's fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. I came here by mistake, he said, trying to sound diplomatic. I didn't know this area was restricted. The guards looked uncertain. Finally, one spoke into a communicator. We found the human with the experimental unit. Awaiting orders. After a tense moment, a cold female voice replied through the device. Bring them both to me. The guards forced them to walk through long corridors until they reached the grand throne room. The Queen sat waiting, surrounded by her advisors. The silence in the room felt heavy. Elias bowed slightly. Your Majesty, Enough, she interrupted. Her voice was calm but sharp. Her glowing eyes moved from Elias to Lyraya. You entered a forbidden place. You learned what was meant to be hidden. Do you understand what that means, human? Elias raised his head slowly. It means I saw something true, and maybe truth should not be hidden. The Queen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Something small, like a shadow of pain. She stood and walked toward them. You humans think emotion is strength, she said, but it destroys worlds. We removed it to survive. Yet still I kept her. Her voice softened slightly as she looked at Lyraya. I should not have, but she reminds me of something I once was. The room fell silent again. The Queen turned back to Elias. You will not speak of this to anyone. If you do, your world will pay the price. Elias met her gaze without fear. I won't speak of it, Your Majesty, but I cannot forget it either. The Queen looked at him for a long moment, then waved her hand. Take him back to his quarters. The council must not know. As the guards led Elias away, he glanced back. Lyraya stood beside the Queen, her face pale but calm. Their eyes met for a second, and in that moment Elias saw something in the Queen's face. Not anger, not cold logic, but sorrow. Later, alone in his room, Elias stared out at the burning star. He now understood what kind of world he was dealing with, a world that had traded its heart for peace. But he also understood something else. Even here, emotion was not dead. It was alive, hidden inside a maid who could cry and a queen who could still feel pain. He knew the truth now, and the truth had changed him. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or its weapons. It was the simple ability to feel, to care, to hope, and to cry. And maybe, just maybe, that was what the galaxy needed most. Days passed after that night, but nothing in the palace felt the same to Commander Elias Ward. The walls still glowed with soft light. The guards still stood silent at every door, and the Queen still ruled with calm perfection, yet there was tension in the air. It was like a storm waiting to break. Elias was kept under watch. 2 guards followed him wherever he went, pretending it was for his safety. The meetings with the Queen continued, but they felt colder. She rarely looked at him now, and when she did, her eyes showed a kind of quiet warning, as if she was saying, do not dig any deeper. He wanted to obey. He wanted to finish his mission, return to Earth, and forget the sadness he had seen in Lyraya's eyes. But he couldn't. Something in him refused to let go. He knew what it was like to be seen as less than human. He knew what it meant to be told that feelings were weakness. One night he woke to a soft knock on his door. He opened it carefully. Lyraya stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. If they see you, they already know, she interrupted, her voice shaking. The council is coming. They discovered what the queen did when that she kept me alive. They will take her throne and destroy me. I came to warn you. Elias's heart pounded. How soon? Before the next dawn. He looked around his room. There must be something we can do. She protected you all this time. You can't just let them kill her. Loraya looked down, her tears shimmering again. She won't fight them. She said resistance is useless. The queen has never broken a law in her life. Elias clenched his fists. Then maybe it's time someone did. For a long moment she stared at him. Then she nodded slowly. There is a secret path to the throne room. I can take you there, but it's dangerous. If they catch you, they won't, he said firmly. Lead the way. They moved through the silent palace, following narrow halls behind the main corridors. The light was dim and blue, and the air was heavy with tension. Somewhere far above, the sound of ships landing echoed faintly. The council was arriving. When they reached the throne room, the great doors were already open. The queen stood there in her silver armor, calm and proud. A group of council members, tall and stern, stood before her. Around them were guards with their weapons raised. You broke our law, Velistra, said the head counselor, his voice cold. You allowed a creature of emotion to live. You have risked the purity of our kind. The queen's voice was calm. I did what I thought was right, right? The counselor said sharply. Right is logic. Emotion is chaos. You of all beings should know this. Elias and Loraya stayed hidden behind one of the tall pillars, listening. The queen raised her head slightly. Then why does logic feel hollow? Why does perfection feel empty? We are alive, yet we do not live, the council members murmured angrily. You speak like a human, one of them spat. You let their weakness infect you. At that moment, Elias stepped out from behind the pillar. The guards pointed their weapons at him instantly, but he didn't stop. She's not weak, he said loudly, and neither is emotion. The hall fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward him. The counselor sneered. The human speaks again. You have no place in our matters. Elias stood tall. Maybe I don't, but I've seen what your people have lost. You call it perfection. I call it emptiness. You think emotion destroys, but emotion is what makes life worth living. Without it, peace means nothing. The queen's eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing. The counselor turned toward her. You see? Even the humans spread their poison here. We cannot allow this. He raised his hand to give the order. End this now. Destroy the clone. Remove the human. Before the guards could move, the floor trembled. The palace lights flickered as ships outside began to fire. The council's own soldiers had started their coup. Blaster fire echoed through the halls. Panic spread among the servants. Loraya grabbed Elias's hand. They're trying to take the throne by force. The queen turned sharply. Guards! Protect the council chambers. But the guards hesitated. Half of them followed her orders while the others raised their weapons against her. The palace erupted into chaos. Elias pulled the queen behind the throne as explosions shook the walls. We need to get you out of here, he shouted. No, she said, her calm voice cutting through the noise. If I run, they win. The council will rule with fear again. You'll die if you stay, Elias said. She looked at him with strange calmness. Then I will die as a queen who finally understood what life means. Loraya stepped forward, tears on her cheeks. You don't have to die, mother. The queen turned to her slowly. It was the first time Elias had heard Loraya call her that. The queen's face softened for a heartbeat. You are not my child in blood, she said quietly, but in truth you are my heart. Another explosion rocked the room. The doors burst open and a group of council soldiers stormed in. Elias picked up a fallen guard's weapon. Stay behind me, he shouted. The soldiers fired energy bolts that burned through the air. Elias returned fire, hitting one and forcing the others to take cover. The queen moved her hands and energy shields formed around them, glowing blue barriers that pulsed with power. You fight well, human, the queen said. Elias grinned tightly. Humans don't give up easily. The battle raged for several minutes. The queen's energy shields held, but she was weakening. Loraya knelt beside her, helping her focus. The connection between them was clear. One born of emotion, not blood. Finally, as the enemy advanced, the queen raised both her hands. Light exploded from her body, sweeping across the hall. The blast knocked the attackers down, their weapons scattering. When the light faded, the queen collapsed to her knees. Elias rushed to her side. "You're hurt," she shook her head weakly. "It's not pain. It's release." The remaining soldiers hesitated. None dared to move against her now. The counselor, burned and furious, stepped forward. "You have doomed us all. You've allowed chaos to return." The queen looked up at him, her voice quiet but strong.
"No, I've allowed life to return." Elias helped her stand.
The queen turned to her people. "You call emotion weakness, but it is strength. It gives meaning to our existence. Without it, we are machines wrapped in flesh." Some of the guards lowered their weapons. Others looked uncertain. The room grew still. The counselor shouted, "You think they will follow you now? You've lost control." But one of the younger guards stepped forward and knelt. "I will follow you, my queen." Then another did the same. And another. Soon half the room had bent the knee. The counselor's face turned pale. He tried to retreat, but Lyria stepped in front of him. Her eyes glowed softly. "You taught me that emotion is chaos," she said. "But look around, compassion just saved your lives." The counselor had no answer. He dropped his weapon and fled. Silence filled the hall again. The battle was over. The queen turned to Elias and Lyria. For the first time she smiled. Not the perfect practice smile of a ruler, but a real one. "Perhaps humanity came to us for a reason," she said softly. "You reminded us what we forgot," Elias bowed. "Maybe we reminded each other." Days later, peace returned to the palace. The council had been reorganized, and emotion was no longer forbidden. Some Zilari began to study feelings again, curious to understand the parts of themselves they had lost. The queen ruled with both wisdom and compassion. Lyria was no longer a maid. She was declared the heart of the throne, a symbol of balance between logic and emotion. On the day Elias prepared to leave, the queen and Lyria met him in the Hall of Stars. "You could stay," the queen said. "Teach us more about your kind." Elias smiled. "I think my people would miss me. But I'll tell them what I've seen here, a world that learned to feel again." Lyria stepped forward and handed him the white handkerchief he had once given her. "You gave me this when I cried," she said softly. "It taught me that sometimes small kindness can change everything." Elias took it and nodded. "Keep it, it belongs here now." She smiled and pressed it back into his hand. "No, you'll need it where you're going. The galaxy still has many who have forgotten what it means to feel." Elias looked at her, then at the queen. "Then I'll remind them." As he boarded his ship and looked back at the glowing palace, he saw the queen standing beside Lyria on the balcony. The star behind them burned brighter than before, like a symbol of rebirth. For the first time, Elias felt true hope for the galaxy. He realized that no matter how far humanity traveled, its greatest power was not its ships or its weapons, but its heart. Because even in a universe of endless silence, it was the human ability to care and to reach out, to feel, and to forgive that could awaken even the coldest stars. And somewhere deep within that alien palace, a queen and her maid looked up at the same stars, no longer empty but full of light.